No, you look good. Look good. Can you see me? I'm going to turn the audio off on this. There. What's are you? Check your mic. There you are.
Already?
Yeah, there you are. Well, let's see. Slats. All right. Take the width of the slat. What is that?
Right.
Let's say it's 2 inches. Okay.
Sure.
Um, I have a little chart that I put all the calculations so I don't have to do them over and over and over and over again for everything on
Peter.
a room mode calculator. Scroll down to that middle section. You got a little slat diffraction frequency, both width and gap.
Right.
Okay, so if you have a gap of 0.75 inches, that is equal to 18 kilohertz.
Right.
Okay, half wave, which is lower, is
Right.
nine kilohertz. 9K, man, that's
Yeah.
still up there. Okay, that's going to be, since it's a half wave, it's going to be 10 decibels lower in level return
Right.
from that 3/4 inch. Now, if it's 2 inches, it's 6.7, almost 7 kilohertz for the full wave.
Right.
Half wave is going to be 10 dB down when it reflects 3.3K.
Right.
Okay, if you're
Right.
if you're 96 inches, it's going to be 140 hertz, and below that, it's 10 dB down, it's 74 hertz. But um, something the height of a slat, that long length is going to be disrupted by its width because it's going to chop it up and the wave is going to flow right around it. So basically, we're just looking at the center of look at 2 inches by 2 inches, basically. Like a lot of these block diffusers, that's what you're going to get phase change at 6.7 kilohertz.
Right.
That's it. It doesn't go down to, say you got 12 inches deep, which would be equivalent to 1K, okay?
Right.
And no, it's not going down to 1K. It's not. It's working at 6.7. And that area, we're quite sensitive to it. And we'll notice the different phases. Notice the phase change, excuse me. And our our brain will interpret that as space.
Right.
Now, when you have a slatted wall, it's going the
Such as
edges.
like behind me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It will diffract. It will diffract. The edges will diffract
Right.
in relative to the plane, 45 degrees up and back. And lower frequencies will flow more like water, like a fluid around it, and it
Correct.
flows through it.
Got it.
Uh,
But
uh,
regardless of your slat width and thickness, you do want that to be a consistent width of either the slat itself or of the gap across the entire surface. Randomize that, correct?
yeah, the thing is, it matters little. It doesn't do as much as they think it does. It depends on your relative position to it due to the diffractive effects of the edges. If you have, say, you got a speaker down here, you got a slatted surface here, and you're sitting here and you're hearing the sound reflected off of all the slats, you're going to get a specular reflection off the surface area.
No.
Basically, you're going to kind of get that, and it'll be a comb filter. But at the same time, you're going to get a whole lot of diffraction off of that, which is all different. Well, Now, diffraction will line up the phase. It will align the phase regardless of where the sound's coming from. They'll always all be in the same phase going. If you're 45 degrees from it, it's going to get you right there. That's of course it's attenuated. It's that diffraction is attenuated because it spreads the energy in many directions. You take an energy of 100, you put it to an edge, and it diffracts it in 100 different ways. That's like 1/100th each diffracted piece of energy. Let's just say it's that many, just as a thought, a thought experiment.
Right.
So diffraction is absorption. So you got more absorption than what you've got stuffed behind the wood there,
Right.
due to the edges. It kind of gives like a little, I don't know, hemispherical dome of absorption around all of that. Each edge has this dome around it, all over the place of absorption. If you can imagine it, if you can visualize it like that. As I said, the gap and the width of the slats will follow the wavelength rule. For the full wavelength, you're going to get a specular reflection off the slat.
Right.
But only that wavelength or that wavelength and above. Okay. Below, if you drop down half wave, it's going to be 10 dB down. It just rolls off pretty good. So,
but my understanding, now again, this might be from information that we were using that was not quite as accurate as what we thought it was.
yeah.
Today, that whatever surface that you're applying your slats to, that you want it uniform across that plane.
You can get diffractive and phase change effects if you undulate the surface.
Right.
And I do that in some of my spline arrays. That's what I call them. And they're just a slatted trap, but it's all like, curved and in and out like that. I've tested it, and the GLL files show that it's doing phase change. So depends on, because it's due to the distance between the reflections. You see, getting the source sound, which is the same thing to all points, and then when it reflects, they're delayed due to the distance, and therefore you get phase change.
Sure.
It's not quite as magical as people like to make it from the quadratic or primitive root calculations. Those calculations ensure that it's pseudo-random. Okay, you could do the curve, and it's not so pseudo-random, but it's close. The way I did it, I used a primitive root calculation, and I took all the different measurements and I stacked them around. So here's a little one, here's the next one, here's the next one, put the next one, and did the next one in the list, basically, rather than in their random form. I just made it a list, and it needs to go like this. And I said, well, let's turn around, let's put these here and make it wave, and they all fit. So that helped.
All right. Let's see.
It was an organized random number. It was completely random and disorganized, and I took and I organized it into a wave. It worked.
as far as slat width and or gap width, is there is there a range of numbers that you want to look at, or is there a random, or not a random, or is there a range of widths and depths and all of that that you want to, that there's no sense in even looking at? Or
Yeah.
in other words, is there a range you want to avoid?
Well, I'd avoid anything that. Okay. Well, I'm going to share my screen here. Here.
Okay.
I would have. Here's my little list. Say hello to my little friend. This is my little list. So, and
Okay.
this has the calculations in it. You see, here's the full frequency. You take the speed of sound times the length or the width, and it's in inches, so it's divided by 12. That's as simple as that. It is really simple. Speed of sound divided by that width or height or whatever it is. And since it's in inches, it's divided by 12.
Right.
So it gives it feet because this is feet per second. Anyway, so we're getting down in the mid range, 8 inches. That's 1.6 kilohertz.
Right.
10 dB down is 844 hertz, which is right there, right in the middle of the tone of every guitar. You
Yeah.
know,
Or a
uh,
bass, or at the upper end of a bass.
yeah. I mean, that's a real important range. I just wouldn't have it bouncing around in this range. I wouldn't go for more than 5 inches, I'd say. You don't
Right.
want to go down too low. It's enough to give that sense of an enclosure, a room. When you go into a room, you have all these reflections. You don't even notice them, but your brain does, and tells you, "Oh, I'm." You can walk in there with your eyes closed. Oh, I'm in my tracking room. Oh, I'm in the studio. I'm in the hallway. I'm in the
Yeah.
bathroom. You sense the the space. You're
Correct. Yeah.
familiar with it, and that's what that tells you. These reflections give you enough to give you a sense of space. Especially even 2 inches is great because it'll tell you that the room has a front wall on it, or front wall ish.
Sure.
Drop a pin, you hear it,
Yeah.
reflects. Um, but I do slats usually behind speakers, where speakers are not going to reflect off of it,
Right.
so that I don't get specular reflections from the source, from my monitoring mixing source. I do often put a a graded array behind the mix engineer's ears, left and right and left. Okay, and that adds diffraction to the rear of the room mostly. It will come back to the mixer. It will because it the way it diffracts and stuff. It'll, but it's going to be such low level, and it's absorptive as well.
Right.
So at 18 kilohertz, we got 3/4 inch edges. That's all that's reflecting, 3/4 inch. So 18 kilohertz isn't going to hurt much of anything in the
Right.
mix. It's going to give you sort of well, if it does anything, it's going to give you like the RLX exciter or the you know or the old ones. Oh, come on, it's a company E something EX something or ELX or I remember these. They used to make foot pedals. MXR? No,
Yeah.
they made some of the first exciters.
Right. Yeah.
You know, so basically what that is just 16, 18 kilohertz noise.
Right.
When you when the when the signal goes in, it raises that noise level.
Right.
But,
But I noticed that at 3/4 of an inch, your quarter wave, you are getting some attenuation down to 4.5.
That's 20 dB down. You barely hear it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, having slats that are 4 to 6 inches or better, or greater, I should say, really isn't doing much for you.
No, I don't think so. I think it could cause you more problems.
I would think it. Um, but again, I'm thinking, about the comment that it should be a random width. I would,
Yeah, that's like neither here nor there. I don't think that has much to do with it at all. People are thinking that it actually diffuses or does phase change. It does not. You know, it's phase change is about the delay. You
right.
imagine I got a squiggly line like this, and
Yeah.
I got one superimposed, and I slide this one over. Then we have phase change.
Right.
That's all that is. It's like the sound reflected off of here and gave us this relative phase, and then the ones over here and it reflected here and it gave us a different relative phase, and together, that's what we sense. That's
Right.
all.
Again, I'm still going back to, if you don't need, or let's say you've got a problem with attenuation, or if you have a problem frequency that you're having to either being excessive or not being enough because it's being absorbed, I would think that adding randomization to the equation, you would more than likely run into issues, creating more issues than you're actually solving.
I
But
don't
you know
know.
that unless you actually have done the calculations to determine, where your problem frequencies might be.
Yeah.
Uh, I just, you know, before I can, tell somebody, oh yeah, just, randomly do something, um, that seems a little dangerous from this the standpoint of it being sound science. You know,
That is true. That is true. We do too much speculation and guessing. We just do. Even yeah, I'm 72. I've been in this all my life. I still do that. It's a
yeah,
human thing that we do. We need to be aware of it and go, whoa, 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 wait. Let's measure that. Oh no, it's 6 inches. I'll get out the tape measure and measure it. Oh shit, it's only 5. See, um, we can be wrong, and we are wrong most of the time. It's just
yeah,
we our
no,
eyes deceive us and our ears deceive us,
yeah,
and so. But it also we're also deceived and confused that it's more complex than it is sometimes,
sure,
and it's fascinating, yes, and can be complex if you don't understand it. But it
hmm
really comes down to being quite simple. It does this and it flows around at these frequencies. It begins to flow like fluid, and these frequencies act like light. Where it
yeah, yeah,
it reflects
being,
according to Snell's law. Yeah.
yeah,
Um, and the diffraction effects also is talked about in Snell's law. There are other um, uh, authors and whatnot that you can read. I have to look them up myself. Um, yeah, in our test show, a lot of that. Maybe I should, in part of this, let me pull up some DLL files and
all right,
show how that diffraction works or how it does. Let's see, testing. Here we are. Okay. Now, let me, for example, grab this. Where's my there we are. Now I have the 604 that we discussed that I told you is a spline weight. Let's just look at that first.
Sure.
Okay, so this is the GLL viewer. Let's see. First, I need to balloon. No graphs. There is one thing you have to do when you set this up. Damn it, I forgot. Let's go. I'm going to do a vertical map. I'm going to calculate balloon. This is it. Okay. Resolution low. That's fine. Distance is 5 meters. That's how it was done, or something like that, I believe. If I'm not mistaken. Program. Damn. I can't remember what we did. Ron has taught me this. Okay, here we are. Okay, so let's look at this. This is the 1/24th octave. That's good. That's fine. Graphs, attenuation balloon. Here's attenuation balloon at 1,000 hertz. See, as this is the red is down is pretty hot. Right here at the color change, it's about 15 dB, and then here at this color change, it's 20 dB, 25, excuse me. So that's the attenuation. Let's go up here, since those slats are about 6.3. Now we're seeing some interesting things happening. How it's going
Yeah.
now. See. Let me look at the phase balloon. Phase balloon. Okay, now this is very interesting. Let's look at the vertical map. Oh, sorry. Damn. Phase balloon. All right, there we go. And I'm not sure if I can turn this or not. 6,100. Look, you look at this right here, 67. See the points? These points?
Yeah.
All pointy ones? Now these are, this is phase change, okay? Now if you see the petals, big like petals, those are specular.
Ah, interesting.
See, the specular reflections here, and you got the phase bloom in the middle here.
Right.
Let's go down to, what was it, 33, about half that?
Okay. All right.
Attenuation is much less. You see, you got a little phase there going on. See, a little bit of phase change happening in here, but
Right.
it's not. It's attenuated quite a bit. Here's 2 kilohertz, 975. So the pedals is all specular. We got a few offshoots of phase change. I'm going to have to get familiar with this again. Just a minute.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Now we can see the transfer function here and the frequency.
Right.
Let's see. Now this is phase here. See it flip.
Right. There's pedals. Yeah.
Yeah, right in the range of 6.3K. This area, 8K to 2.5. That's basically that.
Okay.
Interesting.
Very.
If we open up, like the diffuser, the 510, 511, we see that phase balloon view. Oh, still got that running. Okay, fine. Okay. What am I supposed to do here? Oh, I know. 3D perspective. No. File. Come on. Yeah. Oh, that's it. That's what I have to do. Okay. Balloon. 10. Distance. 5. I think that's it. There it is. Okay. So this is my slatted diffuser, the one with the, it's at different surfaces, different distances. At 1,000 hertz, it's not doing much. Let's go to 3K, okay? Still not much. A lot of speculars, okay, on the
Yeah.
side. Looks like, off that. Let's get to half the set frequency. 9. Hello, it doesn't seem to be acting right. Just a minute. Is this correct? Oh, we're facing away from it. That's it. All
Oh,
right.
okay.
Let's look at this.
So we get,
Yeah, just a minute. I used to be able to turn this. Wait, angle. Where is the angle? Polars. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. See how it does different? This is the front. This is the right-hand side, left-hand
right.
side, etc. Depending on the frequency, notice which way that shifts. See that?
Yeah.
That's spreading out here, there, everywhere. You know how it's going,
Right.
and
Yeah.
that's just the edges. 10 kilohertz, or almost 11. Here's 6, 7. Let's see. Look at this is polar directivity index. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You can look. You can see a lot. Here's the horizontal beam width. It's pretty consistent. Or I'm not sure if that's how we set it, being horizontal or vertical. Uh, that's right. So it is sitting horizontal. Look at this. These are specular reflections off the edge, or is it not? No. Forgive me. Nope. We're looking at the back, which is basically 2 feet, 24 inches, okay, by
Right.
24 inches. This unit was so 24 by 24. These are reflections off of that. The back
Right.
behind it, okay? So it reflects basically in this region, and if we're looking at the beam width, the horizontal now, here's the diffraction up here.
Huh?
See that? But you're still getting this reflection regardless.
Right.
This is what I
Yeah.
say, that when you have a surface that's y this big, it's going to
Yeah.
reflect, the
Sure.
frequency of its length. And of
Yeah.
course, above that and below it as well. But it's going to be a specular reflection. That's interesting. Now, directivity index. What's this? Oh yeah, right. Okay. Man, I got to do this a lot more. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Phase balloon mapping. Now see, this is really helpful here because we look at. Let's go up high frequency. Okay, 20K.
Right.
You see the white? That's going to be unattenuated, nearly specular reflection.
Yeah. So it's almost 100%.
Well, it's never 100%, but it's a lot.
Well, it's virtually 100%. Yeah.
Okay.
It's unattenuated, right?
Okay. Anytime energy hits another mass,
Right.
it's going to reflect, but it's going to lose some energy to that reflection.
Sure.
You
Yeah.
know.
Well, I mean, physics dictates that it's giving up energy to be able to reflect.
Right. Right.
it's how much energy is lost.
Yeah, I just had to say that to be clear to those watching this.
Correct. Yeah.
Interesting. Frequency spectrum. Very interesting. See if we're going at 60 degrees off. What's that? No, it's not showing. Never mind. Just wanted to see normalized transfer function. Right, yeah. Balloon mapping. No, it's not what I want to see. Really like this phase balloon. I want to see if I can. Is there a way to spin this
Rotate that.
around? I did it. I've done it before. Wait a minute. There must be graph options. There it is. That's what I missed. Okay. User define limit scale. Directivity maps. No, I'm going to have to play with this on my own time because,
Sorry.
yeah, I feel like the wizard in The Wizard of Oz. Remember, he
Yeah.
did something and he starts floating away, and Dorothy says, "Come back, come back, come back," and he says, "I can't. I don't know how it works." Okay, so I need to work with this again a little bit more, but to recap, when you look at a phase balloon
Right.
in its GLL, you see it look like flower petals. These are specular reflections.
Right.
When you get into say this, you can see the points and a lot of jagged points going out here. I wish I could turn this around so we could see the top view. Let me
Yeah.
see. Let me see if I could do this. Phase balloon. Yes. Damn it. Got to see the top view, man. Activity index. Diffusion makes me cool. Balloon. It's not letting me have a top-down version. Ron will look at this and say, "John, I already showed you how to do that." So anyway,
John.
yeah, John, he'll say. But as we go, you can see these little spiky things, and that's your phase
Yeah.
change. Now, as we get into certain areas, we have phase change in certain direction, and different area we get phase change in other directions and whatnot. Also get the petals, which are specular reflections, and this is phase aligned. These speculars, okay. You'll see this is
Looks
phase
about like
change.
yeah.
This is
Look
aligned.
right now is it true that or I guess I should say, is my assumption correct that if it's in the from zero being in this case it would be straight up and down, or is or is
Straight up and down is a very. This is okay. This green line points to the
right
face of the unit. That's pointing. That's the face of the unit on the
right
back side. That we're looking at the back side basically through it.
right
Okay.
yeah.
Um, and
So phase angle is the actual phase or the actual angle of the diffusion or the reflection.
Diffraction.
Correct?
Yes, sir. Yes. Now you can
Oh,
see
okay.
it's blooming out like a flower. Let me see if I can get the. Just a minute. Attenuation balloon. No frequency. Damn polos. I used to be able to get this uh, a lot. Well, I thought a lot better. Notice how it's really contained in lower frequencies. They're just
Yeah.
not a lot of
Well,
spread or anything. It's kind
yeah,
of,
it's
you know,
because you know It's
Well,
there's just
they're just
nothing
thin
there.
boards lined up like this, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
As you get up here,
as you start to get into frequencies that do interact with the physical properties of the device.
yeah, between 19.5K and 20K, big difference. You see how it moves? You
Yeah,
know, those little things that just move a lot. Uh, it's due to the different surface levels and
right.
their small thickness. So anyway, enough of this, because I don't know what I'm doing here.
Like any mad scientist, you know.
Yeah, Kenny. Yeah. It's the med part of it. Yeah, it kind of goes with the territory. You kind of either,
Yeah,
if
because
you're not crazy, you won't mess with this stuff because it's like, no, that's not. No, I'll go work on the
yeah,
car.
I sweep the floor, you know, something like
That's right. Just normal stuff.
yeah. Um, yeah, like I said, you know, I thought it was a very interesting um and somewhat discerning. Oh no, not discerning. God, the the response that the fellow made again. You know, I'm just wondering why he was expressing that you should pick random widths and
Well,
random and I was like,
I don't know. See, here's the thing. People believe all kinds of things, and
yeah,
many of them very strongly believe them. And but when we always have to be ready to have evidence support what
and
we're
that's
putting
what I
out
asked.
there.
You know,
It's
I,
it's
I,
it's
oh, I
different.
don't.
You know, I've had some evidence, so I thought years
Yeah,
ago, and I promoted this because of that.
well,
And
that's what.
when I find out that that evidence wasn't quite gathered properly,
Yeah,
and it was,
well, it's 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 forever a quest for knowledge. You know, because you
well,
don't
for
want
better, yeah, it's just looking for the truth. It's
to.
kind of like that post I made about I don't care if I'm right or wrong. It doesn't matter much to me. I would, of course, I like to be right, but I want to know the truth. What is true here? Is this true?
Yeah. Well,
And if it is good, then I can use that as a stepping stone, and I can look up here and see what else is true. And
right.
that's just how science works. You learn more. Sometimes the curve goes to the right, and then other times it'll go to the left as you discover more. You know, it's all the fine details. It's like,
Well, I
uh,
mean, it's like I always said, based upon my current knowledge set, this is what I believe to be the true science. But
yeah,
and the last thing that I want to do is pass on incorrect information.
yeah,
And by the same token, I also don't want to correct somebody, if there is if there's more if they have better evidence than I do for their statement.
yeah,
Uh, and again, that was kind of the reasoning behind my post is you know, based upon the knowledge that I have, and again, I'm very quick to point out that I have not really studied acoustics in the last couple of years the way that I have in the past because I've been busy with the studio making music.
right,
So,
right, yeah,
again, I don't want to be too quick to pull the trigger to say, no, you're wrong. Uh,
yeah,
and I don't want to, you know, I don't ever really want to chastise anybody, if there is a chance that they are correct or
yeah,
if they have better knowledge than I do. But
yeah,
by this
yeah,
token, if if you ask for clarification and somebody doesn't provide that clarification, again, posts are up there forever and a day, and you don't want somebody to make an incorrect assumption because a response was not made to your query. Again, there's so much of this stuff that is out there. There's so much information that is based on old information, outdated information, bad science, or
Mhm.
incorrect. And then there's the speculation, and then there's the outright, bullshit.
Yeah.
And you know,
Just
my
remember that which can be stated without evidence can also be dismissed without evidence. So,
yeah, yeah, and again, I don't want to be dismissive towards somebody if their science is better science than what I have, but by the same token, if my science isn't any better than theirs, I have to call into question whether their science is valid. And that was the reasoning behind my post. Um,
yeah,
again, not to,
yeah. I
not not to
just
chastise, but
yeah.
just to
What we want to do, we want to take the math and the ideas and put it in a form where a child can understand it.
yeah, because
If you can do that, if you can break it down and explain it clearly to a child, then you know it. Then you know it.
yeah,
You understand it. If you can't do that, you probably need to get some things,
squared
some
away.
questions sorted out, and that's okay. I do that all the time. I go, I'm not sure about this. Let me check.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
exactly. That's and I find that I run into that, quite often. You
Yeah.
know, especially with my interns and my students that come here to work. They're asking me questions, and it's like, ooh, good question. Let me dig.
Yeah. 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 It's great. Yeah.
Something that I haven't done in a long time. I got to search the Wayback Machine, and if it's something that I don't know, well, I need to go find out because
Yeah.
they legitimate question. And again, based upon my understanding, again, somewhat outdated, information. I pose the question because
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. It's similar to the question of finishes on wood
Right.
and what difference does it make? And I will say that look at the difference that a fiber can make laying on a flat mirror, for instance. You
Right.
put a pencil on the mirror and see what difference it makes in the reflection.
Hmm.
You can acoustically. No, it doesn't really make any difference. Same way with the exposed wood fibers, or if it's covered with a film of paint, it's going to do about pretty much the same.
Well,
Very subtle differences up at 20 to 25 to 40K
yeah,
that we can't hear.
yeah. Well, but yet we may very well perceive it. I mean, it's kind of, and that's where it kind of goes back to, which weighs more, a pound of feathers or a pound of concrete?
Right. It's all the same weight, that's for sure. Hmm.
Yeah. You
Um,
know,
but I do not advise, or I don't buy into the thing that it's going to make any world of difference whether it's finished or not. It's not.
I will, it will make an aesthetic difference.
Yeah, that's all.
That's
That's all.
about it. You
And
know,
many times what we imagine will be what we hear.
right.
It's not
Um,
it's not true, but it's psychoacoustics. Like I like to say,
a little bit.
psychoacoustics is 90% psycho and 10% acoustics.
Exactly. Exactly. That's kind of where, that's kind of that's also part of the nature of my question,
Yeah.
that I put through.
Yeah.
It's again, it's not um it's there's enough of acoustics that I have learned over the years that is inverse, and
Yeah, it's like backwards from what I thought it was. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yep.
exact opposite. The inverse of the square, law, rule kind of plays in with so many different aspects of, you know, uh, quote unquote soundproofing versus acoustic treatment.
You have to think of sound not as waves or anything like that, but as simply energy. Electromagnetic energy through, current flowing through a wire, electromagnetism, gravity, light, it all works with the inverse square law. It's
Yeah,
energy. So think of it as energy, and you go, oh, let me think of it in terms of energy, like a beam weapon or whatever. It's fine. Then you
yeah,
can kind of see things a little more clearly what's happening. People think of them as waves, and sound is it can travel in waves. It's compressions and rarefications is what that is. It describes,
yeah.
but it's not like waves. It's energy, just energy, and it's moving through the medium of the air. Then it moves through the medium of the wall, and then it goes through the air again. you
Yeah.
know, um,
I think the way that I've been attempting to describe it to my interns is worked fairly well for me, and that is that you know, with the exception of air itself, um, all materials have three properties, and at a minimum, and that's every material absorbs, reflects, and diffracts.
mm,
It's a matter
okay,
of how much does each material have of any one of those three properties.
yeah, yeah, that's quite
You,
variable. Yeah,
that's the variable in all of it. Is a pound of concrete will um, you know absorb so much energy, it'll reflect so much energy, and it will diffract so much energy.
mm,
Uh, and a pound of feathers does the exact same thing. It doesn't do anything different. It's just that the relative amount of reflection, absorption, and diffraction.
mm, yeah,
You know, um, and I think that's where a lot of people get confused because they're thinking feathers versus concrete, and it's like it's the same thing. It's given mass, and that mass has properties. What are the characteristics of those properties that are either desirable or undesirable in their fitness for a given application?
okay, uh-huh.
Um, Now, knowing the difference is where I fall down, and my knowledge is kind of weak. So, um, that's where I, am perfectly happy to admit that uh, my science is weak. Now granted, I can tell that something is more absorptive and than some other property or some other material and all that kind of stuff. I mean, oh,
Yeah,
we can all do that, but knowing the proper amounts of a given material and its characteristics is the science of acoustical engineering, in my opinion.
that is, yeah, that
That
you gotta, and you know what? Every single thing, you can't speculate as to what it might do. You have
no,
to start with some data. You have to start with some testing data. And
right,
then perhaps you can extrapolate plus or minus half this and half that. But if you go too far, you need to test again. I mean, that's
yeah,
the thing that too many people fall into. Say, well, okay, if this little cup does this kind of index, then if I make this huge cylinder and do no, it doesn't work that way. You have to test each one.
Yeah,
Uh,
it doesn't. Science doesn't scale because, well, I take it back.
it
The
scales to a degree, but yeah, you're right. The energy does different things at different frequencies.
sure,
And if
and
this is
what
what I'm
about
going through, I'm working on a lesson on small room acoustics, and it's the fact that small rooms are small and they don't work well with low frequency. They just don't. So you have to get to up to a certain minimum size where you can actually hear the bass if it's treated correctly. And
right,
there's a region there where you have the regions of the room. You got the wave, the diffusive, and the ray region. Now,
right?
those frequencies, when you run my room mode calculator and you say, oh, it's right at 437.5 hertz is where that stops. No, it's not. No, that's real squishy. That region
Yeah,
where it crosses over, it's so squishy. So it depends. That's why we always say it depends. And same way with the ray region where it falls in the and
well,
things are
because
just
air,
different.
well, and because the air itself in an enclosure is subject to, different. I'm going to say this and probably be wrong, but air in a large enclosure has different or can express energy in different ways than the air in a small enclosure. Um, and I believe that that's due to how much energy can be fed into a given volume of an enclosure.
Yeah,
Now,
well, it has a modulus of elasticity, air does.
yeah,
When you constrain it in a small box, it can become it acts like a solid.
correct.
Look at
Yeah,
it. Look at there's a paper. I'm not sure. I need to put that on my resources page, written by, darn, what's his name, from Kinetics Noise Control, about venting a floating floor. Because at a certain point, at a certain compression level of this floor, the air in there can compress and it can become, air shocks work really good on your car.
yeah,
But if the valve isn't adjusted so it lets it down at a certain rate, if you close that valve off, you're riding on rocks, man.
yeah. Um,
So it's similar
uh,
to, I understand your point there. Now,
yeah,
in a small room, I don't think we have to worry about that because we're not reproducing those levels.
right.
However, um, a bass amp or guitar, I mean, sorry, or drums won't have that expression or that dynamic if it's recorded in a very, very small room or booth
Exactly.
because that air
That's
can't do what
basing my
it
that's
does. Yeah, you're
actually
right. Yeah,
my
that is,
my pseudo conjecture on is that if I've got a kick drum in a really small enclosure, that kick drum gets choked off really quick. You
interesting.
put
Yeah.
you put it
Now,
in,
again, Max, I may be talking out of my ass here because um, I don't have any data on that, and I'm using my um basically logic and reason and about the understanding of how air works in enclosures and under compression. Uh, but someone may want to comment on that, and if they have any data or other experience, this is about experience when we're talking about recording studios
right.
and the effect that it has on the sound, and that's important.
And like I said, my experience with recording instruments. If I've got an isolation booth, if I put a trumpet in an isolation booth, the you know, even the players have mentioned, it's kind of hard. I have to blow a little bit harder I blow a lot harder in that little room than I do in here.
Yeah.
So there is something to what I call energy loading in an enclosure. Because if you take a small enclosure and you put something very loud in it, uh, the 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 sound has a tendency to kind of at least
Compress. It's what I
if
call room compression. Yeah.
right, yeah,
You get to that point. Hmm.
yeah, where you can't put any more energy in that room,
Yeah.
and the sound will become almost compressed. You put that same trumpet player in a larger tracking room, and they don't have to blow as hard.
No,
Uh,
it's smooth. They just, yeah, it rolls. This
uh,
is it. Yeah. Now we're getting off on a different subject.
yeah, I
We
know.
should do this. We should do this and post it as well. We should talk
Okay.
about this some more. Uh, yeah, we probably better stop here while we're ahead.
Yeah, start going rabbit holes. Uh, yeah, room loading or room compression is a real thing.
Yes,
Um,
I know. Yes.
it's it's its own subject, I think, and I think it's also something that goes along with small room or small studio
Mhm.
design.
Yeah. Yes.
Is
Yes.
when you're dealing with small enclosures, you've got all the low frequency buildup because unless you have extremely thin walls and that energy is
Well,
able to
I
get closure.
disagree with the thin wall idea. Disagree.
Uh, well, doesn't it actually kind of? Well,
We
I
have
guess I should
we have
say,
test data. Okay, you go in the
yeah,
reverberation room. You have this big wall panel where you can remove it and put in a glass or a door for testing, for soundproof testing. You can put a gypsum board in there.
yeah,
Okay, they put gypsum board in there, just a layer,
yeah.
and see how much it affects the absorption of the main reverberation chamber. Eh, no,
Really
really, really, really.
interesting.
Really, really. Now there's some energy loss, but it's negligible because you can't quite measure how much energy is lost. But when you go through the other side, you can see how much is getting through. Okay.
Right,
That's called transmission loss
right.
through that wall. Okay. But you're not losing that much. It's the same thing that Norm Mason put to me, uh, of Mason Industries. Norman,
Yeah,
I met him. Good fellow. He asked
yeah.
me, he says, now, when we're doing soundproofing, what about acoustic treatment? How much, he says, that's going to absorb some energy. So does it absorb enough to reduce the energy going out? And I say, I never count on it. Never have.
Yeah.
It's, 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 it's rather irrelevant to the soundproofing. You want to test a partition empty, and then you
But
know your worst case.
well, doesn't that kind of negate the way that um, diaphragmatic uh, traps work?
No. You mean about the gypsum board and it being lossy or whatever?
No, no.
The way
Well,
the way diaphragmatics work is the center of it where it's maybe moving or vibrating,
yeah,
that does nothing. It's the edges that are bending that does the absorption. The stuff inside is damping to control the movement of the actual diaphragm.
well, a membrane absorber, isn't it the entire membrane itself
The
that you're
entire
relying upon?
membrane moves, but it's the constrained edge that bends that creates the heat. And that
Okay.
is absorption. That's the absorption right there along the edges. That's where it
Oh,
does the work. The whole thing is maybe vibrating,
yeah.
but the bending occurs on that constrained edge.
All right. So it's a constrained edge that's actually doing the
It's
absorption.
doing the work. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that can that's what I'm really referring to.
Okay.
You know, that like I had a trailer that I used to use when I was doing uh mobile recording,
Uh-huh.
and the trailer walls were constrained. It's just thin metal.
Uh-huh.
Uh,
Right.
so the low frequency buildup was very very low, very very low there.
Uh-huh. Hmm.
Because again, it was evidently allowing that low frequency energy to either a be absorbed by the frame, essentially, um,
Or
or
to
the
go
energy.
out, not return. It's not so the partitions were not massive enough to reflect that frequency.
Exactly.
Right.
Right. Yes. Was able
Yeah.
to escape.
Yeah.
Because you could actually, you could hear just about everything that was being played in
Yeah.
that tree.
Yep. Yeah.
If the car went by, you heard it. All that kind of good stuff. Um, so yeah, that's essentially what I was talking about.
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
you know,
I
um,
just don't I just don't want to encourage the thought that if we build thin sheetrock partitions, then we won't have bass problems.
no, 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 no,
You
no,
know,
no.
a lot of times, like residential drywall will create big problems at 120 and 250 hertz. Make it
Right. I mean, now,
resonate throughout the room.
40 is passing right on through, but you've got other issues.
Right. Due
You
to the
know,
thinness and the way it'll react. Yes.
right. So um, it's kind of like your question that you posed a couple of weeks ago. Which is which is harder, to deal with, a small room or a large room. You
Yeah.
know, and both. It's
Well,
but
give me
problems
a
are going to.
large room any day, and I
Yeah.
just have fun, and everything seems to work. It's like everything I touch turns to gold in a large room.
Oh,
It's just the way it's
yeah,
easy. It really
yeah,
is.
yeah.
Uh,
Well, the only thing that you have to worry about at that point is reverberation time.
With
And
that's covered.
that,
I mean, I got that. I got that
yeah.
down.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's it there. Um, you know, but again, you do have to deal with the reverberation time. And yes, larger rooms cost more because there's more area that you have to deal with. But small rooms, in my opinion, um, as far as the amount of work that it takes to take care of a small room, I think is tenfold higher than than it is for a larger enclosure, I would think.
The thought process, as
Yeah.
I like to see things. I love reading Agatha Christie and Hercule Poirot.
Hmm.
Order and method. Use the little gray cells.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
have to line everything up so everything's in order. Of course, you got all these ideas all over it. You have to line them up and straighten them up and go, okay, that makes sense. There it is.
Yeah.
Oh,
But yeah, I'm like you though. I'd rather deal with the large room than the small room.
yeah, yeah. Well, I better get some breakfast. It's
All right. Yeah.
what's the clock say? It's a quarter to 7. I'm up so early. Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. Too early. I'll take a nap this afternoon.
Oh, there you go.
And
All right. Hopefully, something good will come out of this, and we can either solve somebody's questions, or at least put a couple of myths to bed.
hopefully, yeah, yeah. Yes, indeed.
And yeah, I had as an aside note, because this is at the end, so you can trim all of this shit out.
Okay.
Went over to Elon yesterday. John Storick was in.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Interesting character. He's got grandbabies that are here in North Carolina,
Yeah.
and so he's taken up part of your residence here, and I invited him over. Come and sit in on a jam if he ever feels like he wants to tickle some ivories and scratch that itch of playing. But yeah, interesting character. He was. They've got a new software that they're using now.
Software.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
it's new piece of modeling software. It looks pretty interesting.
Hmm.
I forgot what they actually call it. But yeah, it looks like he's got some interesting new software that they're using for modeling.
Okay.
But John's John.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's sure.
I'll just leave it at that. I mean,
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people say that same thing about me.
crazy old bastard.
That's right.
And I'm like, yeah, and I built a studio. I'm not going to deny it.
Yeah.
You got to be nuts to do that.
Mm.
But yeah, I mean, he was basically saying the same thing, that we've all said, um, you know, do-it-yourself design is not the right way to go.
No.
Not if you want reasonably good results.
Yeah, you don't know enough, and you
Yeah, and you
can't know
don't do.
enough, and there's the experience going into it that you got to know.
Yeah,
It's like, say you're really good at your job, whatever your job is. Okay, I'm really good at mixing records. Okay, I think I'm going to open up a donut shop because I always wanted to have a donut shop.
yeah,
Gonna fail. It's
yep,
gonna
yep.
fail the first time at least. You keep trying, you keep learning, you keep learning. Maybe 10 years later, you go, yeah, okay, I got this now.
Yeah.
Same as engineering, it took you. I mean, say you've been engineering, you claim to be professionally engineering for 2 years. You've been doing it for 10 at least before that. It's just how
Well,
it goes.
it still comes down to 10,000 hours.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
The
So
10,000
going into
is the 10,000 hour rule has never not been true. I mean,
it just takes practice is all it is practice. And if you're
yeah.
going to DIY your studio, well, you're going to build about three, four, five of them, and then finally you're going to start getting it right. That's just how it goes.
Well, it's like I've tried to, and it's in one of my YouTube videos that my video guy's been helping me do. You know, if if you put in, if you're headed for 10,000 hours at whatever the task is, if you do it 2 hours a day, it's going to take you a long time if if you're doing it at 2 hours a day versus you know uh, uh, you know 20 hours a day.
Yeah. Or
You
yeah,
know,
20 hours. Oh God. I can't even think of that anymore. When I was younger, I would go 24, 48 hours.
yeah.
And by the time I hit 40, it was like, I'm done with that. No, 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 no. And now I'm lucky if I get 4 hours a day.
Well,
Oh, okay. I'm gonna take a break and have a smoke. Get
yeah.
my cigar.
Uh,
Oh, I'm gonna lay down, and take a nap.
but it's just the 10,000 hour rule. It just
Isn't indeed.
it just takes time to get enough experience to know what you're doing.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
and if you don't know what you're doing after 10,000 hours, there's a problem.
Yeah, well, then you're like the guy in the insane asylum that, when asked why he kept beating his head against the wall, replied, "Because it feels so good when I stop."
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah. All right, I'm gonna have to let you go. I gotta get something to eat and let you have a good evening.
Already, sir. I will holler at you.
All right, buddy.
Have
Okay.
fun. This.
All right.
Alrighty.
See you. Bye.
Alrighty.
Bye.